What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So in a random listing, it seems we may have at least got an indication as to a couple of big games coming up from Nintendo. And I say random because, well, it's certainly not a source I was expecting. We'll go over that, though, here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony when it comes to the Horizon game that was apparently canceled, but now maybe it's not. And then we also have a pretty big shakeup at one of Sony's key studios with Insomniac, as it appears the founder is now retiring and, well, they've decided to name some new people to take the reins. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members of the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below. And we're gonna start today with Phantom Blade Zero, as we had a new trailer that was released that actually showed quite a bit of gameplay. Now, this game's been in question when it comes to the gameplay and some of the choreography. Is like, is this actually what the game will look like? Well, in this case, we saw about 6 minutes of what seemed to be an entire boss battle that was happening, and you can see some of it here. Now, this is the Year of the Snake gameplay trailer that they released, and during this time, you're actually fighting against a group of enemies with one that's like the main focus, and then after you defeat them, it seemed like they jumped up high, and then they used almost strings to be like a marionette that you would then fight, and I have to say, it still looks really, really smooth. It looks super creative as well with the boss fight that they had here. And while this is one battle that they're focusing on, I'm not really sure if this is something that would then translate over and over and over again to a 15 or 20 hour game or something like that. At least the slice they had here looked really good. Now, they said that there would be a release year that would be announced in 2025. So yeah, it's kind of where we are with this game. They're announcing the announcement, right? Announcement of the release date for that announcement. So it seems like we're still a ways off from this one. I'm thinking maybe a late 2026 release, but it also wouldn't shock me if we end up in 2027 with it finally coming out. At least so far, I think it looks pretty good. Also, if you're someone struggling with the size of Call of Duty, I have good news, at least on the Xbox. As it appears, Xbox insiders will finally have that 16 terabyte limit lifted for external hard drive. I don't know how many people have actually run into that issue, but hey, technically, it's going to be, I guess, limitless at this point. This we can see posted up. This is over on Pure Xbox, as they are pointing to a post that was made by Microsoft saying we are enabling support for external USB drives larger than 16 terabytes. So now you can be sure your favorite games are always ready to play. Newly formatted drives that are larger than 16 terabytes will be formatted with multiple partitions to utilize all available space for games and apps. These will appear as multiple devices in the storage devices list. So there we go. We can go up to like a 20 terabyte, a 24 terabyte drive. Those externals, if you look on Amazon, do range upwards of $600. But I mean, it's at that point, you're at 20 some odd terabytes. But hey, good news there. We're covered for at least the next 2 years of Call of Duty, I think.
Today's video is sponsored by Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus. Bring the universe's most powerful warriors together in tactical skirmishes where you are in full control, leveraging superior tactics to deliver victory. Lead more than 80 legendary Warhammer champions as you expand your collection across multiple factions, bringing about new tactical possibilities with different combinations. Equip your heroes with gear to enhance their attacks, armor, and abilities. Building your squad is just the beginning, though. Once in battle, you'll need to plan out your moves to position your squad and take advantage of terrain along with specific traits and special abilities. Compete in several different game modes, including player versus enemy, player versus player, live events, guild raids, and more. Work together with your guild in raids against other players to rise to the top of the global leaderboards and establish your dominance. Right now, you can get 2,000 gold and 50 Blackstones with code HelloJan until February 1st. Check out Warhammer 40k Tacticus for free today and click the link in the description below and use code HelloJan to get a head start with 2,000 gold and 50 Blackstones today.
Thanks again to Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus for sponsoring today's video. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a couple of big games that popped up online yesterday in a certain retail listing from Newegg, which again, random because of the source. Like, I don't go, oh, wonder what games Newegg accidentally posted today for Nintendo and maybe their upcoming system. But here we are. Now, this was noticed and posted all over the internet. A bunch of outlets picked it up, and we can see even Insider Gaming here, who said that they did reach out to Newegg and Nintendo, which more on that in a minute here. They were looking for a comment clearly around this, but something else happened I guess just in the series of events of that. But we can see the product here, and that's a Nintendo eShop gift card, which looks standard enough. You would order the gift card, they would email the code to you, and you can then use it right away. So, I mean, it's convenient in that sense. But then people looked at the description, and it says Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, new 3D Mario, new Mario Kart, A Legend of Zelda Remake / Remaster, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, and then Pokemon Legends ZA, which two of them clearly stick out because we already know about the Mario Kart game now with the reveal of the Switch 2, but a new 3D Mario and A Legend of Zelda Remake / Remaster. So do either of those sound far-fetched to you? Because clearly, no. I mean, a 3D Mario, I think everyone expects there to be one, maybe even shown at Nintendo's big April 2nd Switch 2 Direct. It would make a lot of sense. Mario Odyssey was forever ago. I mean, really think about that. End of 2017, as it was October, they released it. We haven't had a brand new 3D Mario game since. I know we had Bowser's Fury, but that was sort of like the just new content kind of added on to the Mario 3D world. And in this case, okay, finally, Mario Odyssey 2, or just whatever they want to call it, something brand new for that. And I guess in their mind, they're like, okay, a new 3D Mario game per generation. But that Switch generation went on for a while, and we didn't have that situation of there's a handheld and there's a console, so you kind of get like a new big platforming Mario game per system. So really you see one every 3 or 4 years. It's been a while, like more than 7 years at this point. And going into a generation where Nintendo, I don't think is going to struggle necessarily, but it'll be a little more difficult, I think, to get people to upgrade immediately to the next system who has a Switch now, mostly because of pricing and the fact that the Switch has a pretty healthy library. I think Nintendo will be fine still selling games to people who are sticking around on the Switch, as I'm sure we'll see cross-gen games either way. But with a new 3D Mario, that would be one of those key pillars to get people to make the jump to the new system. So I do hope it's exclusive for next generation, and I hope it can really utilize all the new features with a system that should be quite a bit more powerful, more capable than the current Switch. And who knows, maybe Nintendo even taps into ray tracing and uses that in some creative way. We're still looking for reasons to really even care about ray tracing at all. I mean, I understand it does make games look better when it is used well, but then also it does pretty much crush performance. But maybe Nintendo has some ideas around a 3D Mario with something like that. The other clearly being a Legend of Zelda Remake or Remaster. And, I saw this, I thought, oh, wow, maybe Ocarina of Time really would get that remake treatment. And that would look cool if they said, nope, you know what, it's just for the next system, and we are taking advantage of all the extra bells and whistles that comes with that system and the newer chip from NVIDIA. But it could also be, as they say, remaster. I almost wonder if they would also think of that as, hey, the Wind Waker Twilight Princess bundle port that maybe runs at a higher resolution or something. Hey, technically that would fall kind of under the remaster status, and maybe that is what they could be referencing, because certainly would be something that Nintendo might even show at this rumored Switch 1 Direct in February. It'd be a way, I think, as a send-off, and would kind of work to sort of bridge the gap in that almost cross-gen period, because like you could buy it and play it on either system then clearly, and it would be a title that we've seen released multiple times now, but still it's Zelda, and a lot of us are probably going to buy it again because Wind Waker is awesome. Twilight Princess is good too, but that's kind of where I stand. Nothing here seems like weird or off or like impossible, but also it's Newegg, and it wouldn't shock me if whoever was filling out the description was like, oh, what were all those rumored games that people have talked about online that would help to maybe sell this gift card a little better? Oh yeah, new 3D Mario and some Zelda stuff. Remake, remaster. Yeah, just go ahead and drop that in the description and hit save. Next up, let's talk about Insomniac and the founder, Ted Price, who is now retiring. Well, he's retiring at the end of March, but wanted to make it just formal and official now as they, of course, work to then transition to new leadership. And in fact, it seems like his position will be turning into 3 positions, really. And look at Insomniac and all the stuff they're doing. To me, it's not surprising to see that they would need multiple people to kind of take over, but we can see this is posted up. This is over on Sony Interactive's website, their blog with the news. They say, speaking of which, this is from Ted Price, despite a challenging 2024, Insomniac stayed fully focused on building games for our fans. As a result of the team's persistence and collaboration, we're in one of the strongest positions we've experienced in years, with each game in development looking beautiful and playing fantastic. Therefore, last week I felt comfortable announcing to the Insomniac team that after having been incredibly fortunate to enjoy such a fulfilling career in games, I'll be retiring from the industry at the end of March. After over 30 years of leading Insomniac, I felt it was simply time to step aside and let others pave the way for our team. So do think about that for a minute. He's been doing this for 30 years, since 94. Insomniac, they weren't even founded as Insomniac. It was like Extreme something. After a year or so, they decided to just change the name then to Insomniac Games. But I mean, back then, it's the PS1 Disruptor or something I think they made. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Mark Cerny was a producer on that game. But still, 30 years later, that's quite a while. I legitimately think he's just, it's time to retire. I've done enough here. And Insomniac being in a good place pretty much opens the door for that. Goes on to say, during the past year, I had the opportunity to work with the senior leadership team at Insomniac to create a succession plan that I know will provide the continuity, stability, and strong leadership necessary to deliver more of what our fans cherish over the next several decades. I'm extremely happy to announce that Chad Deserm, Ryan Schneider, and Jen Huang will become Insomniac Games' new co-studio heads. I'm very excited to officially join the ranks of Insomniac fans. I can't wait to experience our future games purely as a player. Plus, I can't remember the last time I played any game and wasn't unconsciously scanning for bugs. I'm ready to break that habit. That is kind of the curse of the trade there. I'm sure if you're working in games and developing them constantly and doing QA and stuff, it probably is difficult to turn your brain off when it comes to that. If you just want to sit down and play for leisure, play for fun. It's like, well, you're going to notice if there's clipping here and that's just kind of going to tick at you while you're playing the game or that sort of thing. So yeah, I get that. But just overall, I think it is just ready to move on. 30 years, it's time to retire. And think about Insomniac now in their position, whereas 10 years ago or so, they weren't part of Sony. They were trying to, I'm sure, get purchased at some point, but it all fell into place. They get picked up by Sony. They're pretty much their Marvel studio at this point, as we see Wolverine. There's discussion around Venom. Clearly, they're going to do another Spider-Man game. So they're in a very strong position there. And then Ratchet and Clank has continued to roll along too. So it's not like he's leaving a studio that is spinning around looking for direction. Seems like that's pretty straightforward what they are doing right now, and step away from it at this point in time does make sense. 3 co-studio leads, though, just goes to show also, I'm sure, how much he was handling at that time. And based on the amount of work that Insomniac is doing now, and after seeing the leak, how much they could be doing here in the near future, makes sense they would want to split things up as they to grow and get bigger and bigger. Insomniac is it's not Sony's, I guess, most important studio, although it is up there, since their relationship with Disney and Marvel kind of hangs in the balance of what Insomniac's doing right now. So, I mean, at this point, right off into the sunset, I'm sure Insomniac will be perfectly fine with, again, their direction basically figured out now here going forward. Next up, let's talk about an update to a story that we had yesterday, which was about that Horizon MMO and how it seemed like it was canceled as NCSoft they were going through some things. They don't seem to be in a very good position right now. Just the state of the company seems to be all over the place, especially when he saw that New Year's letter or that message that said, hey, work really hard, or who knows what's going to happen to NCSoft this year. So I will say people were kind of surprised when it turns out maybe Project H or Skyline, they weren't actually connected in this instance when they were talking about game cancellations to the Horizon MMO. But it also still seems like we're trying to figure this one out. Well, okay, let's take a look. This is posted up. This is over on Push Square, as they did update their article after some information came out here from the original reporter. Let's see. Apologies in advance. CEO Zhang Yun told a reader that the canceled Project H mentioned in his article had nothing to do with Horizon. It appears, however, that the Project H which has been canceled is not Project Skyline, meaning the rumored Horizon MMO may still be alive. The May is doing a lot of work there, a lot of heavy lifting. Mostly, again, because NCSoft isn't exactly in a very confident position right now, and with what Sony's doing currently, which is going around and canceling a lot of live service games if they're not up to a certain standard or the monetization practices don't really line up, or they want the studios to do something else. Like the live service push, it seems like it was set into motion a while ago with Jim Ryan, as we all know, but maybe not on the same page as current leadership with Herman Holst. And while he seemed really excited about Concord and the rumors where it was going to be their Star Wars, yeah, he might have been wrong about that one. But also, it's possible Concord may have actually spooked Sony and been like, you know what? Maybe we'll fall back a bit on this and get back to what we know. And those are those single-player narrative-driven experiences, as we see with Bluepoint and Sony Bend. But I guess in collaboration with NCSoft, it's not taking up a first-party studio. It's just them partnering and, yes, putting up money for it. So in this case, they might be seeing it through. Also, it's Horizon, and Sony really wants Horizon games constantly, whether people agree with that or not. That seems to be the big push. So I guess we'll wait and see more with NCSoft, because apparently they're just trying to get through 2025. So at least in a year, I'm sure we'll know more one way or the other. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about EA and Dragon Age the Veilguard, as we have not heard much about sales or how its performance has been when it comes to key metrics from EA. And usually they'll wait for a lot of these different games. Even if it's overly successful, they'll typically wait to get closer to when they have to report numbers to investors before they make any statements. In this case, though, it looks like Dragon Age the Veilguard, and actually FC, their soccer or football game, also kind of falling below expectations, but Dragon Age the Veilguard missed by quite a bit. We can see this posted up. This is over on VGC, Video Games Chronicle, saying EA said on Wednesday that Dragon Age the Veilguard, released in October, engaged around 1.5 million players during the 3 months ended December 31st, 2024, which it said was nearly half of its expectations. This from Andrew Wilson saying, quote, during the Q3, we continue to deliver high-quality games and experiences across our portfolio. However, Dragon Age and EA Sports FC 25 underperformed our net bookings expectations. This month, our teams delivered a comprehensive gameplay refresh in addition to our annual Team of the Year update in FC 25. Positive player feedback and early results are encouraging. We remain confident in our long-term strategy and expect a return to growth in fiscal year 26 as we execute against our pipeline. So, for FC, I do wonder if the move from FC to FIFA, does that have any effect on sales? I feel like people still look at it as their FIFA-type game, but I guess the branding and name recognition from so many decades now, I guess that could have hurt it in some way just going forward. But still, Dragon Age is the big one people are looking at, because I want to point this out. They said engaged around 1.5 million players. To me, that's language you use to sort of dress up and even inflate the number that they presented here with investors in mind, because engaged doesn't mean you sold it. So, for example, they ran promotions with Dragon Age the Veilguard, so if you bought a video card, hey, you got a copy of it, which that's not new. Companies do that all the time in partnership and collaboration with AMD or NVIDIA or whoever. But still, the fact that they say engaged, yeah, I think it's actually not quite a bit, but definitely less than 1.5 million players. It seems like they were looking for 3 million sold or 3 million players engaged. And I will say, when Dragon Age Veilguard first came out on that Thursday, that afternoon is like almost 50,000 people playing concurrently on Steam, which isn't the be-all end-all with Steam concurrent player count, but it gave us an indication. And it seemed like at least there, it was off to a pretty good start. But it plateaued quickly. Momentum seemed to be lost very fast, and then it kind of just faded away. And that was sorted. I guess maybe they were hoping holiday sales would have kickstarted it again. They tried to do a sale like midway through December where they knocked it down to $40, and that didn't seem to do enough for them. So missing expectations here. That's just kind of the way it is with Dragon Age the Veilguard. I mean, look, it's gone through quite a bit online with the just discourse back and forth over a range of things. Could have been the content, the writing, the look, the gameplay, everything at one point in time was just going back and forth of people saying either they liked it, like on some of the Dragon Age Veilguard Reddit, there are people there who like really enjoy the game, but then you look on a lot of social media platforms and people are just annoyed at something about it. So yeah, with competition really, really high, it's like there's so many other things you can play. We've talked about game prices going up to $80 or $90. Well, guess what? People would just find other stuff to do, other things to play. There's no shortage of games right now. If you see something like Dragon Age and the gameplay is off, the look is off, the Culture War stuff is off, whatever it is. It's like, yeah, that's just kind of how it went with Dragon Age the Veilguard, unfortunately, for EA. because they're, I'm sure, looking for, I guess, 3 million players. But hey, you know what's going to happen most likely? They will, I think, slash the price lower and lower and lower until they get that number up over the course of 7 or 8 years before Mass Effect comes out, because that's what's next. And who knows when that's coming out? It really does feel like at this time that Mass Effect might be a PS6, Xbox Series XXX game, and maybe a cross-gen, or I think 2028 for that one, which sounds crazy, but I mean, BioWare has now, thinking about it, gone from Mass Effect Andromeda, which was not good, Anthem, not good, Dragon Age the Veilguard, underperforms, and a lot of people look at it as just not good. They need a win eventually, or I don't know how much longer BioWare is going to be around, so I guess Mass Effect is up next, and we'll see if they can figure that one out finally. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, which is Game of the Year Madness. Again, we're down to the Elite 8, which actually Astrobot is rolling along here to the next round. And check this out. Indiana Jones taking out Space Marine 2. Indiana Jones has been on a run in this bracket. And, you know, I gotta give it credit. Look, I know in Jeff Keighley's event, they missed it because it didn't make the cutoff. I mean, look, it came out basically around the awards show, sure. But, wow, Indiana Jones is, I think, overperforming in some ways here, which is awesome to see because I like the game quite a bit. I think it's very, very good. And I think now it goes up against Astrobot. So, yeah, but I mean, getting to the Final Four is impressive stuff for that game. And it's unfortunate because I feel like next year when the Game Awards come around for Jeff Keighley, it'll have been so long, so much time has passed, so many other games would have come out for the entirety of this year, it'll probably be forgotten about and won't be really mentioned much in the Game Awards for any of those different categories. But I do think if it had come out a month before, maybe it would have been in that Game of the Year category, going up against things like Astrobot, Black Myth Wukong, and yes, even that Elden Ring DLC. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Morning, who says, inflation in the last few years might have been significant, but unfortunately, wages haven't gone up to match it, which only means that most people have even less money than before to spend on video games and other hobbies. Yeah, no, you're right about that, in the sense that inflation has just skyrocketed like 3 or 4 years. And you're right, wages haven't been able to keep up. So in my mind, people, I guess you could look at games depending on the game, because some games do last 100 plus hours. In that case, you might go, you know, I'm going to buy this game and that's going to be my entertainment for the next 2 months. Then you go, well, okay, $70 makes sense because like, think about how much time, you know, people like to match that up. Dollar versus hour amount, sure. And I do see the value there if you are really, really into that game. But when every game tries to do that, but not every game can live up to it, it's like, okay, maybe your game doesn't need to be this big open world, expensive title. But as you're mentioning, wages not keeping up with it. To me, that just means that the free-to-play games or games that have a very low barrier to entry, I mean, those are going to be the games that are going to get the most attention. And I think in some ways they are right now. There's a reason that sales analysts refer to things like Fortnite or Apex Legends or Overwatch, or I guess even Marvel Rivals now, as black hole games, because they do suck up a ton of consumer time on the market. And time is another form of currency that all these companies are fighting for right now. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear Ryan and myself talk a bit more about PlayStation for a couple of hours, I'll leave a link to the latest Click R3 right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.